you so much for coming to our session on engaging young alumni in your network. My name is Angela Scales. I'm the Senior Director of Young Alumni and Student Engagement. I graduated in 2003, and I've been working here in Alumni Affairs for 10 years.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandy, and I am the Assistant Director for Young Alumni Engagement. I started here in September 2013, and I graduated in 2010.
And as a little bit of context for our presentation, 2.5 years ago, we underwent a large-scale assessment of Alumni Affairs, and as part of that assessment, there were some really intriguing data points that they discovered, one of which was that 47% of the alumni population of UCLA is under the age of 40. And so essentially the UCLA alumni population is fairly young. And one of the things that they looked at is the fact that we weren't really doing anything targeted for that population. Hence, out of that assessment, they said, you need to be doing more. Let's figure this out. And so part of our team was restructured to have young alumni staff. We hired Sandy from what was Parent and Family Programs at the time, which is now part of our office as well, and we launched this initiative. And so we just kind of wanted to give you a sense of how long this has been happening. It was launched in that fall of 2013 when Sandy came over. And we really want this to be an interactive discussion, and so please interrupt us if you have questions, especially if there's something on the slide and you want to know more. This is very casual, so please just raise your hand, or just yell it out. You don't even have to raise your hand. And we'll stop and chat about that so that it's more of a discussion.
So we get this question a lot. Who are young alumni? How do you define it? What's the age range? And so we put together a list of characteristics that are pretty general for our young alumni audience. We don't want to stick them into a box, but these are things you kind of see across the board. Number one, they're tech savvy. They've never really known a time without internet. And of course, in the day and age of smartphones, information is as far away as their fingertips are. Number two, along with being tech savvy, they're price savvy. They're going to always find the lowest price, the best value, and they won't settle until they do. And they love events giving back. It's something that was drilled into them when they're a student here, along with UCLA Volunteer Center. Many of them had to do volunteer efforts before coming to UCLA and being a student here. So this is something that they're naturally inclined to be a part of. And they love the opportunity to network with professionals. We put here not fellow young alumni because that's what we heard from our focus group. It really depends on the alumnus, but for the most part, they want to see how far they can go in their career by networking with other professionals from the and then the last piece is diversity across this age group. We tend to define young alumni up to the age of 40. And within that age group, there means many life stages. Sometimes there's a 22-year-old who just graduated, sometimes it's a 30-year-old. Sometimes it's a 30-year-old who graduated 8 years ago. But there's a lot of diversity within our own young alumni demographic, which makes it sometimes a little bit tricky to program for.
So as I mentioned, we launched this initiative in the fall of 2013, and when we began building the team, the first thing we did was we embarked on what we kind of termed the listening tour. We wanted to find out from young alumni what they were interested in, whether they felt connected to UCLA, and essentially how did they want to interact with the university. So we conducted a series of focus groups and one-on-one interviews, and they were in the Bay Area, Orange County, LA, and New York City. And we were really upfront with them. We said, please be blunt. We want to know what we're doing well. They're more likely to ignore it. So they want to know, what am I going to get out of this event? What's the content? What's the length? So important to be specific. They also said, essentially, I'm going to go if my friends are going. And this was interesting because we were in the Bay Area at the time, and the next day was the Bruin Bash at Stanford. And some of them were alumni that Sandy and our colleague Gloria and I knew personally. And they were up front, they said, oh, I would be going tomorrow if I knew if my friends were going. And I just saw on Facebook today that they're going, so I wish I had signed up. But because there wasn't a mechanism to tell them that, they didn't feel committed to want to go to the event. And so we share that because we feel like if there's a mechanism, whether it's using Facebook in addition to your event invite, just some type of element that lets people know that their friends are going is a strong pull for young alumni. Also, they were blunt in saying, I don't need UCLA to make friends. they're social, they're connected, and so because of that, it influences the fact that UCLA events need to have something that is relevant for them because they're already very connected. Thanks to Facebook, the role of Alumni Affairs today is different than it once was because they can already stay connected to their classmates online in a way that they couldn't 20 years ago. So it's just important to realize that your events need to have something unique that UCLA is offering because they're not looking for us just to connect each other. They also talked about being interested in events that, quote, grow with me. And so that really speaks to what Sandy said about the different life stages and the fact that we wanted to do events that were focused on different life stages, whether it was home buying or managing up, but something that spoke to an individual life stage as opposed to saying, okay, we're going to try to do Young Alumni events and we want to get this whole population of 22 to 40, which was in part what we had been doing about 10 years ago when we had some recent grad programming, and it just wasn't really connecting because we weren't acknowledging that there are completely different life stages over those 18 years. Another piece that's really influenced our networking and our events is they said that they wanted industry-specific networking panels and events. And we had seen this actually with student events, that if there's a panel and it's just general, it's one doctor, one lawyer, one marketing person, one entertainment person, that you might go to the event and really only one panelist is speaking to what you're interested in. And so they said, do events that are specific to my industry, both whether it's a panel or networking, because then if I go, I know I'm going to connect with people versus if you go to a general networking night, maybe there's 100 people there and only 3 people are really in entertainment, for example, and going to be networking that's useful for you. Yeah.
I'm curious if that feedback was similar from the New York people as well, because I feel like in our regional, like out-of-state networks, it's a little bit harder because our numbers are so much smaller.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I guess we could say like, let's have a healthcare night or whatever, but it just seems like it's hard enough to get people out.
Yeah, I think especially in smaller networks, it's much more difficult, whereas like in the Bay Area, you could probably divide it up, but I agree, I don't think it's as realistic in a smaller one because you're just trying to get Bruins together generally, and maybe it applies more to if you're doing a panel or something that's a speaker and kind of focused on what one niche industry.
And also that feedback was from the Bay Area, and I think it's because the Bay Area is very industry specific. Yeah, it's tech, or there's a large marketing industry there too.
Yeah.
So.
And another thing that we heard over and over again was we want something that's exclusive, so something that's just for Bruins. And so in thinking about events, we realized, is there an art museum that we could get an exclusive, Bruin viewing of something? Or is there a restaurant that could do a special UCLA night? Because as millennials, we've kind of heard over and over again, we want something that's special just for us. And so we definitely build that into thinking about events. Along with that, just in thinking about this population and what's trendy, we also heard that they were interested in foodie events. And that's something that's informed some of our own programming. And so when thinking about it in networks, we realized maybe it's just finding a Bruin owner of a business and saying, hey, would you be willing to have a UCLA night? And it immediately feels exclusive to the Young Alumni, and it speaks to that feedback that we had gotten. Another piece that we really wanted to touch on is something that we were coming across in those interviews was that you can't put all Young Alumni in a box because there's a lot of common stereotypes that we hear. We see it in some of our local Young Alumni, but we want people to be careful of. So one of those is the fact that, contrary to popular belief, not all Young Alumni are interested in happy hour and game watching. So it goes back to the previous slide of that they don't need UCLA to make friends. And we thought that was important to think about, that, they have cable at home, they can watch that game at home. So just because they're Young Alumni doesn't mean they're going to come to a bar and watch come to the game watching event. And so we realized it's detrimental to think that you can engage Young Alumni in your area just by doing happy hours and game watching. We also found that in thinking about networking events, that it's important to realize that not all Young Alumni are interested in that some of them are either more established in their career or maybe not looking for career-related content. And so some of them said to us, networking events are kind of awkward or intimidating, and so it speaks to what Sandy said, that if it's for all young alumni, some of them said, when I go to a young alumni networking event, none of them, if they're my age, have connections that really help me. I want to network with someone a little bit older than me and more established. So if there's opportunities to do that, whether it's with mentoring or just having a broader age group, that the young alumni found that there was more perceived value. And then also with thinking about niche events, one thing that was big in our planning was the realization that a niche event might have less people. It might be a smaller event, but that it was going to speak to what we said about the audience being large and diverse, because each niche audience was really going to appreciate that event. That, for example, our event on Silicon Beach, people who were interested in that, they loved it. Maybe that panel attracts 100 instead of 200, but the people who came and their satisfaction with the programming was greatly increased. And it's also thinking about, as Sandy said, young alumni who might be interested in a happy hour versus within that same age group, someone with young children that is completely disinterested in a happy hour or something like that because maybe they have young children. And so that talks and kind of helped us to think we need to have life stage events. And that comment about an event that grows with me has informed a whole set of events. I mentioned the home buying event. We did one called House Hunters UCLA that was focused on LA-based trends in home buying. We recently did an event that featured a UCLA dermatologist, and it was talking about what can you be doing today and what you're eating and how you're treating your skin, how's that going to affect it 20 years from now. And we're in the midst of planning an event in December that's about the wedding planning industry, and knowing that young alumni, some of us joke that that's all we see on our Facebook feed is weddings, and so we know this is something that's happening. And we're also talking about some events that might be related to child development, so it would be catering to those alumni who have young children.
Angela?
Yeah.
Problem, again, these niches are great, and I could see, 401k, IRA, and why start now, let's say.
Yeah.
But when we have, like in Vegas, maybe, if we're lucky, 20 young alums that we can track, how do you try to get somebody there, there might be 3 people there? And make it, it might be valuable for the 3
Yeah.
to show up. But you get a professional, say, come on after work, and we do have people in our group who would do it, but I don't want to waste their time because we won't get a second chance at it.
Right. And that's why I think that something like a foodie event or a brew and business owner is maybe more realistic for
Still
something.
down to 4 or 5 people.
Right. Oh, but I mean not going at a niche industry, for example, like sticking with events that you think might be more appealing to young alumni, but aren't narrowing it, like you said, so much to only 4 or 5 people in that industry in Vegas.
And we're going to talk about some tools that are not so event heavy, not so logistics heavy in terms of engaging your young alumni.
Well, the other thing is, could we do something like, let's say, the well thing, geared to young alum, but also other people, you can be 45, you're still going, I haven't saved for anything, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And for a lot of our events that are based on life stages,
Mhm.
we do start increasing the upper threshold of the age limit that we invite to the events.
Okay.
So,
And everyone's invited because it's on social media. We want everyone to come. The only place where the number really comes in is the data we pull to send the targeted email, but anyone can register. There's no limits.
So Facebook, everybody would see it.
Yeah,
Basically, it's
yeah.
young alum, but
Or in
if
Connect
you
or
do
something.
have interest,
Yeah, definitely.
and for the most part, all our events, the first hour is programming, the second hour is networking. So those who don't want to network, are not very good at it, they'll probably leave at that point, but if they saw a friend in the crowd earlier, they'll stay and connect with them. So now that you know a little bit more about young alumni characteristics, what they need, what they like, let's see where they are. So unfortunately, young alumni do not walk around with a shirt that says, "Hi, I'm a UCLA Young Alumnus, please program for me." They're dispersed. We know that they graduate and they move. So the first thing you need to find out is how many young alumni are in your area, and then where are they concentrated? Are they more in the city? Are they more on the outskirts and the suburbs? And that's something that our regional networks team can help with in terms of pulling the data and creating a heat map for you.
But how accurate is that database? Because it could take years for them to say, oh, I need to change my UCLA information. Is one.
Yes, and so it's pretty crucial that we get them to update it as often as possible. Any chance we get to talk to them at events, meetings one-on-one, and passing and email communications. We even posted several times on our Facebook page or at least once a month to say, hey, if you haven't done it in a while, please go here and get your contact information. Because it's the only way you'll receive relevant information. And I think the important key, the key word of that is relevant. Because they don't want to be receiving Las Vegas emails if they're living in LA and vice versa. But if they can still receive emails for their own specific region, they'll be happier with that. So we always try to push that point in. And the idea about knowing where your young alumni live, because if they live in the suburbs but they work in the city, for example, New York, San Francisco, even Houston, well, if you're going to do an event on a weekday, on a weeknight, maybe it should be right after work, and maybe it should be closer to the city. They're not going to stick in the city very long after work, but they're also not going to hustle all the way back to home and then make the time and effort and energy to go out for an event. Another piece is, are young alumni visible in your communications? Email, social media, Facebook, Instagram. Are they highlighted on any of those channels? If you have an email going out about a young alumni happy hour, try to have a young alumnus in the photo. If you can't, let's do something a little bit more graphic. Young alumni love graphics. They love looking at a photo. I mean, that's why Instagram is so popular. Looking at a photo, knowing what exactly the event is, and being drawn in by that. Something colorful, something that pulls them in. So on the point about young alumni in the area and knowing where to find them. You have about a 6-month window to find young alumni once they leave UCLA and move to your regional networks, which means that in those 6 months, once they move, they will be establishing their own network, finding friends, connecting with coworkers, networking on their own. So after those 6 months are up, that's when you start to lose them, which is also why we did Welcome to the City in the early fall, so that once they move to your city, they can get connected to you right away. And also special events and meetups for new residents. They don't have to be complicated. It can be non-strenuous hikes. It can be coffee meetups. San Francisco does a great event called Cup of Java in the mornings right before work. So those casual events really allow them to just kind of do a little pit stop, meet people, and then go about their day. And if it's something that they enjoy doing, then of course will come back.
So one thing that Gloria and Sandy and I talked about when we were making this presentation was when thinking about recruiting young alumni or your network in leadership roles, that it's important to identify what we call gateway opportunities. And so we talked about the fact that as leaders like yourselves, if you meet young alumni at an event, what's the next step? How do you engage them? And the idea that it can be very simple. You meet them at a network event and you ask if maybe would they like to help out at a future event? Would they want to work check-in at something upcoming? Or maybe they could lend their social media expertise to the marketing chairs on your board. And something that came up again and again was not asking them to be the young alumni chair the first time you meet them. You have to kind of court them and allow them to see the value of the network before you ask them to take on a larger role. And so asking them too early can really be your downfall. And so it's important to reiterate that they don't need to be established in their career to be on the board. We've heard from some young alumni, I think they perceive that everyone that's on a network board is at a certain stage in their career, and so they might perceive, oh, I'm interested in being involved, but I couldn't be on the board, I'm not, you know, I'm too young for that, or I'm not in that place professionally. And so you want to assure them that you want alumni in all life stages on your board, and that their voice is critical within the board, that voice of young alumni, and that is critical to the success of the network and its events and its future.
Shelby, who's the Young Alumni Chair at Westside, made it really clear when she said that everyone brings a special set of skills to the table, and everyone's voice should be heard.
And with that, think about ways that you can cultivate their leadership skills. So maybe ask them to speak at an event or to welcome Bruins, because there might be little ways that they could be engaged, like working check-in at an event where they get more comfortable and they get face time with attendees, and they can kind of get a sense of, oh, what is it to be involved, to be on a board, to work events of that nature. And also, when you're looking at your calendar, it's important to be making young alumni programming a priority. So looking ahead in the year and carving out space and time for these events. And that really means deciding how frequently does it make sense in your area. If there are a lot of Young Alumni, then it could be more frequent. But you also want to be realistic. If the regional map shows that there aren't a lot of Young Alumni in the region, then realistically they're not going to be nearly as frequent. So also think strategically about the best time to engage them in terms of maybe there's an event in your city that really is targeted to young people. Look ahead in the calendar and say that month should be a Young Alumni event. They would love to go to that beer festival or whatever it is. Another thing that we've noticed, and this really came about with Sandy's work in Orange County, is that you don't want to get stuck on the idea of needing a, quote, Young Alumni chair, because you could have a Young Alumni committee. That began in Orange County a year or so ago, and what we've noticed is that for some Young Alumni, the idea of being the chair is really daunting. They don't feel like they have that kind of time commitment, and so they might be interested in getting involved in planning events, but they'd be much more comfortable if it was a committee. Maybe it's 3 people, 4 people. And so you want to consider that that idea might be much better for your area in terms of what they can take on, and letting them know that they can plan the events together, they can staff them together, and depending on what they did while they're at UCLA, a lot of students are more comfortable with that. That's how their student club was run. And so it's a great way to cultivate that leadership, but not throw too much responsibility, because they might be interested, but then once the ask is, could you be the Young Alumni chair, you might lose them because they perceive, oh, I'm not ready for that, that's too much of a time commitment. So realizing you can make it more manageable.
So where are you going to find Young Alumni who are interested in taking the next step, being a leader in your regional network? These are a list of events that are currently happening in most of your networks, where Young Alumni turn up and they raise their hand and want to be volunteers. These volunteers are your future presidents, or your future treasurers, or your future secretaries, and they're crucial to be engaged now. So events like Welcome to the City, Dinner with Full Strangers, they're great for those alumni who are just moving to the city, they're trying to figure things out, and they want to have a touch point with UCLA. That's where they'll be going, including game watch parties. Those who are ready for the next step in involvement and volunteering, we probably see them in events like send-offs, college fair trainings. Those 2 events tend to skew a little younger as well. Not that the knowledge of our more experienced, wiser, older, more wonderful alumni aren't necessary, but those incoming students who attend summer send-offs are asking questions like, what's the Burn Bash concert like? Should I buy a den pass? Should I buy my books 0 week, or should I wait till the first week and go with my friends? What's the best spot to study outside the library? Those things have changed over time. So if you can't give them this current information, it's not as helpful as someone who graduated maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And the mentor program is something Orange County is doing right now. We pair an alumnus to another alumnus. And the age range really varies across the board. Yes, we have the traditional kind of 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old who's paired with someone who's in their mid to late 50s. But we also have those who are mid-30s, and they're being paired with someone who's 22. So the age range really varies. And it's a fairly successful program right now. We haven't done a call to the participants to see what their experience is like. But this is just another way they can extend their connection and affinity to UCLA. And of course, culinary tours in San Diego, Cava Java in San Francisco, those 2 events are quick touch points. They can come, they can join whenever they want, and they can leave whenever they want. They don't feel like they're tied to the event for 2 hours. Another space where you can find young alumni who are ready to take the next step in leadership is from our team. We speak with young alumni on a daily basis. There are those who are moving and they email us and they say, well, I'm moving to Houston. Is there anything in Houston? And probably because they're already involved here. They want to make sure that they continue that involvement wherever they go. Lastly, managing their expectations. So young alumni don't have small ideas. They have big ideas, grand ideas. But it's important that you instill the knowledge of the UCLA brand and the standard of excellence in terms of programming. They understand they're not just planning for them and their 10 friends. What I mean by that is that, you know what, tailgates are great, planning a tailgate for 60 Young Alumni, not so great. I've seen it fail firsthand, and it's pretty bad. It's a rough thing to have to do. But if they understand what their role within the greater UCLA Alumni Affairs, why do they need to plan alumni events? Why can't they just do happy hours? Well, it's because that everyone loves UCLA for a different reason. And we need to make sure that that reason still exists once they are alumni. These are more things to keep in mind. Once again, Young Alumni are the future of your regional networks. They're going to be integral in succession. They're going to be integral in making sure that other Young Alumni who move to the region are connected to your regional network. And this is a really important point to our team, is that the core of the network, it's not events, it's you guys, it's the people, it's the leaders, it's the Bruins who live in those zip codes, in those area codes. So events are great, but they're one and done. You go to an event and you leave. The key thing about events is the relationships and the connections you make at the events. The Young Alumni Chair, maybe their whole purpose is to make sure that they approach all Young Alumni at the event and connect them back to board members and opportunities that your network is already providing. So if, Josie Bruin is attending the event and I'm the chair for Houston, I will approach Josie and I will introduce myself and ask her, it's her first event. If she's a returner, I ask her why she keeps coming back, or what's the thing that keeps her coming back, and how else can we provide support for her. And she may say that she wants to do more professional networking events in an industry that you currently work in. So it's always, the connections that you make will last a lifetime. Events are one and done. Engagement is different for everyone. The football game is always on TV somewhere. And so if it means they're not watching it in their own home, they may go to their friends. So coming out for a happy hour or a game watch party is not always on the top of their mind. And also, if they're 35, 40 and they have young kids, they probably won't be going out very often. Young alumni need support. So we spoke about this a little earlier, and it's something that I think here is your role. You as a network leader, you are the beacons for young alumni. They don't have life figured out yet. They graduate with UCLA after 4 years, maybe 2 years, sometimes 6 years, and then they realize, shoot, what did I just do at UCLA for all those years? What did I just study? And my God, am I going to even use it? That's where you come in. You are the resource. You are the beacon for them. You are the touch point on our behalf. And here's a quote from Benjamin Franklin that I think will help with this idea, is that, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So involve them into the process and help them develop. This is where you kind of become surrogate mentors. And something that
They're very savvy. We mentioned this in the first slide. So they want to know where their money is going. Sandy and I encountered this when we went to an Orange County event. We went to an Angels game. And we were talking about it after. If the price on the website to register is more than the face value, the young alumni is going to wonder why. Like, if I go to the Angels website, that's not how much the ticket was. So that it's important to explain to them, why is there that fee? What is the benefit? So letting them know, for example, the proceeds are going to benefit our network scholarship that sends Orange County students to UCLA. Then Sandy and I feel like, great, we want to do that, sign us up. But then if you don't educate them about that, because they're savvy, they're going to go, oh, it's cool, I'll just buy it online and I'll come to the game. I don't need to go through the OC Bruins. And so explaining that structure of the fees is really important, because if it's fuzzy, they'll get suspicious. Also, and this is why this photo is here, is our Young Alumni staff, use us as a resource. We can help to brainstorm event ideas, we can tell you what's worked well in other networks, and we work with Young Alumni committees and we can utilize leadership development tools to build their skills. We can also help you find, for example, Bruin business owners in your area to, for example, do your own Bruin Foodies event. We're encountering them all the time. Sandy and I essentially have a bachelor's degree in stalking alumni and finding out what cool things they're doing. We literally take lists like the 30 under 30 Forbes list, and we look up each of the 30 and see if any of them are Bruins. Because, as I think all of you know, there's no magic database of successful Bruins. There's just the entire alumni database, and we have to find out who those special, extraordinary ones are that we want to highlight. So let us know if we can help in that way. And along those lines, when it comes to a Bruin foodie, another piece of information we got from focus groups that we found fascinating was that they said, we want to know what fellow Bruins are doing. So that person who lived on their floor freshman year, who they're not in touch with anymore, and that when they get communications from UCLA, while it's lovely to get the Bruin celebrity updates, like what's happening with Russell Westbrook or Lauren Holiday in the World Cup, that they can get that information elsewhere. That's on ESPN, that's on their feed already. They want to know the extraordinary things that fellow Bruins are doing, and so that's why we found that Bruin Foodies is such a fun concept, because then they find out, oh my gosh, I went to school the same year as her, and she started Cool House Ice Cream. How cool is that? And so figuring that out is something that we can assist with. Also, the fact that we can help to market these events. We have a dedicated Young Alumni Facebook page that Sandy manages. We also have a separate edition of Connect. It's called Young Alumni Connect, and we can highlight both events happening and also your leaders. We often will do a Bruin Spotlight and an article in Connect, so we could highlight the Young Alumni Chair in your area and have an action item in the article that says, if you want to get involved, you can work with so-and-so, we give the information, and Connect is a huge platform for that. It goes out to, I think, over 60,000 Bruins. So essentially there's a variety of communication channels that we can utilize to help you in these efforts. Lastly, and we know this is blunt, but don't start Young Alumni events before 7 o'clock. We have found that Young Alumni can't leave work early in the same way that more established alumni might be able to. And when you add in traffic, we never start anything before 7, especially the events that are here at JWAC, because they just can't get here. And so we've noticed if you send out an invite and it says the event starts at 5:30, a lot of Young Alumni are just going to ignore it, even without looking at the content, because they realize, oh, I can't make it to that. We get invites to things that are on campus, for example, too, that are related to a department, and they'll start at like 4:30, and we're always thinking, we couldn't even get to that. How is someone going to get to that? So being realistic about when something starts. And it speaks to what Sandy talked about is it where they work or where they live that you're planning an event? So moving them around so that, if there's an event on the peninsula versus San Francisco, and switching it up so that when they get invites, they realize, oh, they're not always in San Francisco. They are moving it around the bay or whatever it is, because I think that if they get too many things that feel similar, they start to kind of tune us out because they feel like it's not for them. So another thing to think about is just the reminder that you as network leaders are the experts in your area. There's a very specific reason that when we launched this initiative, we didn't create another Young Alumni Council. There's a development council, there's a Young Alumni Professionals, but we as staff said, we don't want to create another council because the network leaders are the experts in their area, and we would rather cultivate Young Alumni committees and chairs in those areas than have people reporting to us when those are only going to affect things that are here. We wanted it to be more broad-based, and so we focus on programming and outreach from here and pushing out your events, but we know that if there's some cool new venue in your city or a new hotspot, some new restaurant that would make, for instance, a cool culinary tour or something. And so utilize the expertise that you have being in that area that we don't have.
Now on to next steps and action items. So there are 3 things that we want to make sure that it's kind of homework. It's fun homework, but it's still homework. So the first thing is do your research. So reach out to your regional staff liaison, whoever that is, and see if they can get you an updated heat map. The heat map is basically, it shows you where the concentrations of your young alumni are. And we can do one for where they live and where they work. So you can see, do I need to do one in the city, events in the city, or do I need to do events more in the suburbs? And then once you get that data, start meeting with 3 to 4 young alumni just to pick their brains, to do a mini focus group. And the last part of your research is, like Angela said, look around your city, see what makes it cool, what's the flavor of the city. Seattle has its coffees, its breweries. Capitalize on traditions that are in your city. Maybe it's more music-based. So capitalize on the things that would draw someone to your city, what makes it beautiful, what makes it inspirational. Second thing is define the goals on your board. Maybe having a young alumni chair is not realistic. Maybe you have too small of a population of recent grads to do anything too targeted for them. But there are other things you can do. For example, you can do a highlight on your own Facebook page of the young alumnus, young alumna in your city, just to get the face out there and to try and change that culture of, well, I can only be involved if I'm older, if I'm established. I don't have the right skill sets yet to be well, they're never going to get the right skill set unless they just do it and learn. The third thing is, it's not really an action item, it's more of a reminder, and it's kind of the theme of this presentation, is to create space on your boards for young alumni. To create space for young alumni, period. Whether it's on your board, in your programming, in your events, or on your Facebook page. And so sometimes we use programming and events interchangeably, but they're really different. Events are physical gatherings. Programming can be the mentorship program where you pair two people up. It doesn't have to be a meetup. And one thing I wanted to remind you, especially with what Angela said earlier, is that Alumni Affairs has not always been a welcoming space for young alumni. Our program started September 2013, so we hit the ground running. So we need your help. We need your boots on the ground, and we want to work together to make this a success, because the work that we do, we want to see it. We want to see the turnover and the fruits of our labor 20 years down the line when they become network leaders. So let's work together.
So does anyone have questions, or we'd love if anyone has best practices or things that have really worked well in your network, if you want to share them with the rest of the group. We know that we've seen some great things, especially in Orange County, the Bay Area, but does anyone have any questions about this topic?
I just want to say one thing about what you just said. I met a bunch of alumni lately that have graduated in the early 2000s to the mid 2000s. They don't even hardly know the Alumni Association exists.
Yeah.
I was staggered.
Because the first thing we got when we graduated was a phone call to give. And giving is important. Giving is really crucial to the survival of this university. But there was nothing else that existed to engage them and connect them back to campus.
And when I told them about all this stuff, I was just amazed.
Yeah.
I mean, when I graduated, I didn't become active until I moved to a different region, and then I wanted that connection to UCLA instead of being home. But I mean, it's just changed so much in the last 2 years, 3 years that, I think it's great. And we have at least two, maybe three young alums that are either on the board or sort of attend our board meetings regularly, and their insight is key, because we're a city where people are moving all the time, and most of them are young, and they are very professionally focused, and so at least our group of young alumni is not looking for right now at least the group that we are connected with is not looking for the family stuff type yet. They definitely want the networking and the professional programming, and how can you help me get promoted or find get to that next stage in my career.
It's not
type
out
thing.
of It's not out of the ordinary to not see a 2015 grad attending your events and your leadership meetings, things like that. Sometimes they do take some time off to kind of just refresh, restart, and focus on their career. And then maybe 2-3 years down the line, they start missing UCLA. They start seeing a lot of photos of girls who are in LA, and why can't I have that?
See, I think for us, I think we actually have a leg up being out of state, because I think a lot of these young graduates, they're not married yet. Their families are in the area, so one of the first things that they do is try to find
common bond,
some sort of connection, some kind of common bond with people. So we actually have gotten a lot of 13, 14, even a couple 15 graduates that have come out to our watch party or our send off and things like that. So I think we actually are almost luckier in that way, because they don't have a circle of friends that they are with all the time, and they're not going to the Rose Bowl still, and they're not doing that. So they're definitely looking, and that's why it's really important to us to be able to keep them there and try to get things that are interesting for them. So on that note, are you guys able to share your presentation with us? So that
we can definitely send.
So there are different ways that we can engage young alumni who aren't, either you don't have a space for them on your leadership board quite yet because you're full, or there's just not something they can do yet. Because we have recent grads who will email us saying, I'm a specialist on this topic. And I say, well, fine, write us an article. We'll include it in Connect, and you're the expert on that. Or you're the expert because you work in that industry for that. We had someone write an article on, she works in kind of coaching, career coaching, so she wrote an article for us on that. We have an alumnus who recently graduated 2 years ago, and now he's traveling on cruises, and he's a musician on those cruises, and he wants to kind of write like a journal entry, and we'll publish that. So just giving them an outlet to express themselves, and they'll feel like they're a part of the program, even though they have a very small corner. Any other questions?
Can you tell me a little bit more about what these heat maps, what kind of data is going to be on that thing?
Yeah.
Just so I don't know if I was going to ask
What's
for
the
this.
term heat?
Heat map. And the reason why they're called heat maps is when you look at them, it kind of looks like a weather map. It's where's the epicenter of it. So heat maps involves pulling a set of data. So say, what city are you from again?
Monterey.
Monterey. So say you have 100 Monterey Young Alumni in your area. So we'll pull that data from our alumni database, and we'll create the heat map using an online tool. And it basically shows you where the concentrations of them are. So sometimes they may be equally dispersed around Monterey.
The floor.
Yeah. Or in, North Monterey. In Orange County, when we were doing an event down there, we found that like 75% of them were in Irvine. So it made sense for us to do an event in Irvine and, not move it to Fullerton or to Tustin. And your regional lead is going to help with that. I think that's Catherine. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually the data, the numbers, and you guys are pulling that data off of what, like subscriptions of the UCLA magazine predominantly is where they actually
So
live?
it's something that feeds over from their student years. And so every year that we've done this, we send them an email after graduation saying, update your contact information, connect with the regional networks, wherever you're going. So that goes out to all recent grads of that year. So that they know that if they were in the marching band, they'll know that there's an alumni marching band group for them. If they're moving back home to Monterey or they're moving to Monterey, there's an alumni network there for them as well.
And we push the update your info in any communications we do, because we do notice that, maybe they found out about the event through Facebook, but then they're asking us, why did I get invited to this event? And then I think the most common thing is, oh, well, it says you live in San Jose, and say, oh, that's where my parents are. And it's surprising how many people, even in those like early 2000s, it's still, I look up my friends and they still have their parents' address because they just never really got involved in the network, and it's literally 13 years later and they still have their parents' address. And so if there's not an impetus to change it, they, like you guys said, they don't know that there's a network, so they don't even realize what they're missing because they're not getting emails for their area, and then kind of lost them.
Do we contact you directly for this or area directors?
It would probably be
The regional
the
network
yeah,
directors.
so like Catherine.
And they can actually pull it for your entire group too.
Yeah.
We just had them do that for us because we're so spread out.
And something that I learned from my last job that was really helpful, because we were planning these things called coffee socials. There would be 52 that happen throughout the state. Sometimes in LA, you need more than one.
What are you guys' opinions on doing events on a weeknight versus like a weekend?
Oh, we didn't mention that. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays on a weeknight are the best dates. Monday, Friday, not so much. Weekends, we haven't done an event a weekend. We have one coming up on December 6th. And it's on a Sunday from 2 to 5. So that will be our first tester. Just make sure it's not on that game day.
Of course.
Yeah,
Question about Brew and Foodies.
yeah,
Is that just a generic title? Is
Yeah.
it a group?
we came up with it. So
Okay.
Gloria and Sandy came up with the idea. We went after our first one, which was the Pool House founder. And when we came up with the name and there was a lot of interest in it, it was more the idea of let's just make that a series where we always do Brew and Foodies maybe every 3 or 4 months, because there's typically a Young Alumni event from our office once a month. So every 3rd or 4th we try to do Brew and Foodies. And we really just came up with it as an idea for what to call it. And we're always looking for different people to feature, and that's one that we think can be really regionally based. I know we've seen some people in New York that we thought would be cool to feature, and then it really is up to the network if they want to do it. They don't want to do it.
Series-wise, we have just featured Bruno business that are in the restaurant industry, restaurant beverage industry. But of course, in regional networks that don't have Bruno businesses that are in the food industry, you can just do a Bruins night at that restaurant. That will appeal to recent grads. Because I'm sure soon we'll run out of people who own restaurants you can also merge into, maybe they're involved in managing the front of the house and not the actual owner or the chef.
So what do you do? They just show up at the restaurant? You know, you take
So-
reservations?
What we've done is we've invited the chef, the owner here, and they kind of talk about how their career, where their career has gone, where it's going, the inspirations behind their food, their business, and then we actually serve their food.
But here, not in
Yeah.
your restaurant.
What we do if they're accessible, what we found is sometimes their venue space is too small for it. So like one of them was an ice cream place on Sawtelle that only fits about 10 people. So we did it here, but in a recent one we had with a restaurant owner downtown that we've been discussing an event with, we've discussed what are the possibilities of having the event at their restaurant, and that is a challenge because then like maybe a weekend is better because they can shut down the restaurant for hours in the afternoon versus a weeknight. Most restaurants are not going to be willing to shut down for an event. So that's a piece that we, like every event is different, figuring out what's plausible.
But you have some kind of program,
Yeah,
not just show
Yeah.
up and
and we've always, in talking to the owner, said, what are you comfortable with? Because some of them aren't super comfortable speaking in public, so maybe they prefer to tell a little bit about their story and then do a demonstration. Or in the case of one of them, Sandy actually interviewed them, so it was kind of like a talk show, and then he made the craft cocktails. Someone else might be really comfortable being the speaker. They did their own PowerPoint with photos and everything. So we always kind of ask them, what are you most comfortable with in telling your story? And then we build the event around what they're comfortable with. So. Well, thank you all for coming to our presentation, and feel free to contact us if you have additional questions. We obviously work upstairs, and enjoy the rest of the conference.